Cloud. Yes.
Excellent.
Hi, everybody. We'll give it just a few more minutes, let people come in. All kinds of familiar faces. This is lovely. Oh, I just got your text, Sarah. Thank you. I'll set that up after we finish this Zoom. So, oh, and this I think is the second time today I've seen Rebecca.
Hi, Anne. Great to see you.
Good to see you. I figured I had to be on camera for this one. This morning, I was not prime time ready at that early.
8:30s on a Tuesday are hard. I'm regularly in the car, so it's hard for me to come on camera for those calls as well.
For sure, for sure. It was interesting. It was our policy, federal policy calls on Tuesday mornings, and then we do state policy calls on Thursday, and things are happening.
Yeah. I bet the federal policy calls have been especially interesting the last year or so.
Oh my gosh, very much so. Although, on a good note, and then maybe we'll go ahead and start after this. There was the administration's trying to then overturn the Johnson Amendment, which is the nonpartisan that keeps nonprofits nonpartisan, and it got they did not win that one last week. They'll try it again, but hey, I'll take that low hanging fruit.
Absolutely.
Well, I would say let's go ahead and get started. Um, is this anybody's first CEO/HR roundtable? Oh, there's our friends over at Ronald McDonald House. Excellent. Well, these are monthly only, excuse me, member only events that we do once a month. We usually do one CEO the first Tuesday of the month and then an HR one. But we combined them this time because we were at our Carney conference during last month's HR roundtable. And this is such an interesting topic that we wanted to get the word out. I do want to announce we are recording this call, just so people are aware. And with that, um, oh, okay, sorry. Eva's text through me in the chat box. So, this is just a great opportunity for people to come together, ask questions, talk about topics and trends. I know at our March CEO call, we had Brigitte Morris, who operates our group, multiple employee assistance program. So kind of a similar setup to what we'll hear about today with the retirement plan. And and we try to have like guest speakers more often than not because, you know, you don't want to listen to me talk all the time. So there you go. Well, great. I would say if you could also put your organization by your name in the chat box, just so Troy knows who's here. If you would just rename yourself, if you haven't already done that, and I should look and see, oh, do I need to do that? But so we've been working, what now, about 2+ years
Yeah,
With
three. I had to look myself, and I think it was back to 2020, early 2024, maybe. So yeah, you're right. Probably about 2+ years.
It
Yep.
just seems longer
Yeah.
because we've had so
Does. We've
much
done a lot.
going on. CapTrust is our partner that helps coordinate everything on the 403B retirement plan because you don't want me doing that for you. And so we started this program probably about a dozen years ago and about, went out to bid, and that's when we went to CapTrust. And then we also went out to bid and we changed providers from Nationwide, who every time I say Nationwide, I have to say they were not on our side, and I'll just leave it there. And BPI to a company called BPAS, and we've been working with them about a year. And I think you're going to be really pleased with the service that they offer. And quite frankly, until we wanted to go through that transition, we really have held off on advertising the retirement plan. It's a great employee benefit for you to be able to offer your employees. And so we're grateful that we have a good partner on this. And with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Troy. And Troy, if you want to talk a little bit about CapTrust and then dive into the plan.
Yeah, absolutely, Ann. So appreciate it, and great to see all of you, and thank you for all the great things that you do for your communities. And probably my favorite part of working with this plan, I do like complex things because that's fun too. And this is unique, and we've got 100+ organizations in this plan, so that makes it fun compared to my typical kind of single employer clients that I work with. But other thing that makes it really fun is just when I meet organizations and I hear about their stories and just all the really cool things that are happening, obviously predominantly throughout the state of Nebraska, but even kind of beyond into some neighboring states. So really enjoyed working with NAM so far on this retirement program. Actually, I was looking back at my notes. I think it's actually 2023, so that's been about 3 years. And I think what I'll do, Ann, is well, I'll share my screen. I've got a little bit of a deck here that we prepared. And then as part of that, I even included just a little bit of history on the program, how it came to be, just to give you an idea of why the program exists, and if it's not a program that you're offering your employees today, why you might want to consider doing that. So hopefully everyone can see my screen here. Um, as Ann mentioned, I'm with an organization called CapTrust. So I'll talk about who we are in just a minute, but real quick overview of what we're going to touch on today. And I won't take a lot of time, but we'll leave some time open for questions. I want to answer any questions you have about the program, but we'll talk about what the NAM 403B plan is, because some of you might say, well, I know exactly what that is. It's a retirement plan that NAM offers. Any member organization can offer it to their employees, but others might say, 403B, that sounds Greek. I have no clue what you're talking about. So what are we even here to talk about today? So we'll get into that a little bit. Why it might be something you would consider offering your employees, your organization might consider offering. What are the benefits of it? What is the cost? How does it compare to other things that you might do from a retirement standpoint, from a benefit standpoint? And then if you are interested or you want to learn more, what are the next steps for learning a little bit more about the program? So hopefully that sounds like a good agenda to you. Again, we're not going to take a lot of time. I'll be pretty brief. And like I said, most importantly, I just want to be able to answer your questions if you have any that are kind of top of mind regarding the plan. So jumping in, as Ann mentioned, I did want to just give you a little bit of background on CapTrust first, so you know who it is that's working with this plan, and give you some idea of whether or not we work with plans like this. And as I mentioned, it's a very unique benefit that NAM established many years ago, and I'll get into the history a little bit. But fortunately, as a firm, we're a sizable firm, and so we have a lot of experience with arrangements like this. So as unique as they are, we do see a lot of them. As a firm, we've been around for almost 40 years. We actually advise on about $1 trillion in client assets now. So we are the largest independent advisory firm in the country. Independent meaning that we don't have any of our own products that we try to sell people. So within the retirement program, we're utilizing what we believe are best-in-class investment options from the Fidelities, the Vanguards, the T. Rowe Prices, the Nuveens, the JP Morgans of the world. So we're not conflicted in terms of what we're recommending your people invest in. And then we also have the ability to give your people advice, and we're not selling them anything either. In fact, it's in our contract that we're strictly giving fiduciary advice. So anybody that participates in the program, their employees can call us anytime they want at no cost And we can, of course, advise them on their retirement program, but we can even help them with budgeting or understanding whether or not they can afford to buy that car that they're looking to buy or buy that house. And so we can kind of do a lot of just different financial counseling type services for people. And again, that's all included as part of our engagement with NAM. So anybody that's a participant in the program has unlimited access to that advice. But as you see on the page, there are over 3,500 institutional clients. And in fact, we do about 500 billion of our 1 trillion is nonprofit retirement programs. So a lot of association type retirement programs like this. We have about 105 different association clients we work with, tons of higher education. So we are very in tune to the nonprofit community and into the 403(b) community. And I think why that matters is because that gives us a ton of leverage and market muscle to go to the service providers and the fund companies and negotiate really competitive access to administration, to investments on behalf of our clients. So we'll get into that a little bit, but that's one of the, I think the coolest things about this program is we're able to leverage the size and scale of NAM and this program and then CAPTRUST to create something that otherwise would be very difficult to access if you were to try to set it up on your own. As Ann mentioned, we had a pretty substantial change in the administration of this program that we kicked off about a year ago and really was finalized early this year. And previously, the plan had been working with Nationwide as the record keeper, the administrator, and then a local organization called Benefit Plans Inc., which was a great organization out of Omaha. But the plan had really grown to the level that it maybe kind of outgrown both of those partners. And so when NAM brought us on back in 2023 through a pretty robust RFP process to identify kind of a new partner on the advisory side for the program, one of the first things we said was, let's eventually go out to market. This plan's really grown. We want to ensure that it's ultra competitive from a fee standpoint. And let's interview a number of different service providers and identify if Nationwide would best fit. And ultimately landed on Benefit Plan Administrative Services, which is an organization that has over 10,000 plans, over 130 billion in assets, almost 1 million participants across their platform, and just a lot of administrative support that we could tap into for the program. And so we moved to BPAS. And as Ann mentioned, that's really kind of given us kind of extra energy and motivation to say, this is a great program. We've really kind of stabilized now the service provider aspect of it. Let's make sure that all the member organizations at NAM have an understanding of what this program is and what's available to their people, because we're getting a ton of inquiries now that the dust has really settled on this conversion. But we're confident there's probably a lot of other organizations that, if they understood the program better, might identify that it would be a really good benefit offering for their people. So let's talk about what the plan is. As Ann mentioned, this was started several years ago. In fact, I looked back, 2009 was when this was established. And one of these days, I'm going to have to ask Ann what led her to start this, because it was one of the first multiple employer 403(b) plans in the country. So a really, really cool kind of leap of faith that was taken many years ago to say, okay, we've got a lot of nonprofit organizations that have joined the association. It would be a pretty substantial hurdle for them to start their own retirement program. How do we create something that everyone can tap into and take advantage of? And I imagine that was a massive undertaking when that was done back in 2009. But again, the idea behind it was, how do we consolidate the buying power of all the organizations collectively, outsource risk and administration so that each individual nonprofit does not have to devote hours and hours and hours to this thing every year, but they can still offer that retirement benefit to their people. And as you can see, it's had massive growth. So I looked back at 2015. The plan had about 10 million in assets, 40 participating employers, about 1,500 participants. If you fast forward to 2020, so 5 years later, about 30 million in assets, about 70 participating employers, about 3,000 participants. Fast forward to today, we're up to about 60 million in assets, over 100 participating employers, and about 4,000 participants. And I think the next several years it's just going to continue to grow exponentially because we've had, I would say, probably 15 to 20 organizations just this year have reached out to me and said, I'd love to learn more about this. We're interested in joining. And so I think, the word is out and it's growing. And the faster this thing grows and the bigger it gets, just the more and more leverage we can utilize to negotiate fees and services for the benefit of the organizations that are participating. So really excited about all the growth. Pretty neat to see. And in fact, I know Anne has other states reaching out to her saying, is this something we can participate in? And so certainly something that we are researching. So why would an organization consider joining the NAM 403B plan? And I'll preface that by, I imagine there may be some on the call today that maybe already have a retirement benefit that they're offering. So that's great. And that might be something you maybe evaluate side by side with this. But what we know and what I know from most of my conversations with NAM member organizations that are not participating in the plan is that they're just not offering a retirement benefit today. It's obviously a pretty substantial undertaking to do that. And so why would an organization even consider that? I thought this chart was really fascinating. So this is a SHRM 2024 employee benefit survey. And when they asked employees what the most important benefits were, health-related benefits, number one, and that's not surprising. I almost always see that be the case. But number two is retirement savings and planning benefits. That is generally considered the second most important benefit that you could offer people. And in fact, what's interesting is a lot of people will determine whether or not they're going to work somewhere based on whether or not you have a retirement benefit. Interesting that today about 70 to 80% of full-time nonprofit employees have access to a workplace retirement plan. But generally, that's bigger organizations. So about 84% of what are considered medium to large nonprofits, that's greater than 50 employees, offer a workplace retirement plan. But less than 50% of small nonprofit employers, so those with less than 50 employees, offer a workplace retirement plan. So you think about, obviously, you know even better than I do what the nonprofit community looks like. Of course, higher ed falls into that, healthcare falls into that. So that probably skews the numbers upward. But we know that a lot of small nonprofits don't offer a retirement program because they don't have access to something like a plan like this, or they would maybe have to start something up on their own if they wanted to offer something. What we know is based on survey data, when a nonprofit employee is offered the opportunity to participate in a retirement plan, over 80% of them join. So certainly, there may be some challenges sometimes from a compensation standpoint. Maybe employees have to sacrifice to join a nonprofit organization. But even with that in consideration, most will try to find a way to participate if they can. And most will find it to be a highly valuable benefit. I think maybe the most interesting thing that I've read recently was a survey that revealed that so there were 6,000 different emerging nonprofit leaders that were interviewed. And nearly half of them, 48%, said they could not commit to a long-term career in the nonprofit sector because they didn't believe they could retire comfortably. So we're losing, I think, potentially a lot of talent because over time, individuals say, well, maybe if I don't have access to a retirement program, maybe I devote part of my career to a nonprofit organization, but eventually I need to leave and then I need to join a for-profit organization because I may never be able to retire someday. I don't have access to a retirement plan. And so I think that's where NAM was really forward thinking and saying, how do we fill that gap? Can we create a retirement program that is really easy for our member organizations to offer and tap into so that we're not losing talent because maybe employees, maybe this is one of the reasons they look elsewhere. They don't have, means to participate in a retirement program. So at a high level, why would an organization consider joining the plan? Well, they do desire to offer a retirement benefit. It's a way to attract, reward, retain employees. And so looking at a plan like this, hey, this is a way that I could do this without having to create it on my own and devote a lot of time and attention to it. Maybe you really care about the financial well-being of your employees. You want them to have a retirement benefit. And so this is something that you might consider. For those that already have a retirement plan or consider starting their own plan, they might look at a plan like this and say, well, maybe this plan is a little bit more attractive because it's much larger. So it's got a lot more buying power. We're able to access things at a lower cost. Or hey, maybe I see that I can save a lot of time If I tap into this plan as opposed to having to offer my own plan. I can outsource a ton of risk if I join this plan because the fiduciary liability for this plan is owned by a committee that oversees the plan. So a lot of time savings, a lot of risk outsourcing, a lot of cost savings with a plan like this. That might be why some organizations consider this. So let's talk a little bit about the benefits of the plan, and then, and like I said here, in just a few minutes, we'll open it up to any questions if you have them. So, again, the power of this plan is that it's grown substantially, almost $60 million today. So what we're doing is leveraging $60 million in assets, 4,000 plus participants, 100 participating employers to really achieve a cost structure that is substantially more competitive than if a small organization started their own retirement program. But it's even more competitive than a single employer for-profit company 401k plan of a similar size. And I'll kind of show you some detail on that in a minute. But that's, I think, one of the things that we're the most proud of is administratively, there's a lot of moving parts here in this plan, but we're still able to offer it at a price point that's ultra competitive for those that want to join. Again, the fiduciary relief is probably one of the biggest things. Organizations can offer this plan and discharge just about all the risk and liability to the committee that oversees the program. So if you offered your own program, you're responsible for filing things annually with the IRS and the Department of Labor. You're responsible for selecting the investments, ensuring the fees are competitive. You discharge all that risk and liability when you join this plan. Very minimal governance that you have to worry about. You don't have to worry about hiring an auditor or paying for what's called a fidelity bond. You're discharging all of that because in a multiple employer plan arrangement, that's handled at the plan level. The investments are ultra competitive because we've got a large plan with a lot of buying power. And so, a lot of times I'll see these smaller plan arrangements with maybe for example, like a Mutual of America, for example, where there's a lot of proprietary funds that are very high cost. We're missing out on maybe some areas in the market that an investor might want to access. In this plan, we've got a really competitive investment lineup because it's a much larger plan. One of the coolest things is every employee at every employer that participates in this plan has unlimited access to a financial counselor at CAPTRUST at no cost. So again, that could be asking questions about investments, saving, but it could be asking questions about budgeting, buying a house, saving for their kids' college, buying a car. And again, we have literally no products to sell anybody. So we're just truly giving fiduciary advice from licensed retirement counselors, helping people on their financial journey. And then the last one, of course, is simplification. Again, if you sponsored your own plan, you'd have to file things annually with the Department of Labor. You'd have to have your own plan document. You'd have to oversee the investments and the fiduciary process, the service providers. You don't have to worry about any of that when you join this plan. You just charge all of that to CAPTRUST and the committee, which kind of makes it a really easy benefit for you to be able to offer your people. So let's talk about the cost, because I think that's always a big consideration. And to me, that's probably, again, as I mentioned, as an analytical person, maybe the thing I'm most proud of with this program. But the average participant in this plan pays an all-in cost of about 65 to 70 basis points. So basis points is a term that if you've ever been in banking, you may be familiar with. It's a way to say, okay, anything less than 1%, we call it basis points. So 65 to 70 basis points, meaning if you took your balance in the plan and you multiplied it by 0.0070, that would give you an idea of all in what that would cost you as a participant in the plan. So not by 0.70, but 0.0070. And that's investments, administration, service providers, all of that is included in that all-in cost. If you look at the 401k averages book, which is kind of the predominant fee benchmarking tool that most in our industry use, the average $50 million plan is 80 basis points. So even though we've got a much more complex plan with over 100 employers, a lot of moving parts, we actually beat the average single employer 401k plan. We even beat the average $100 million single employer 401k plan, which is really, really cool. And then I think maybe the most important kind of benchmark here is for most organizations, if they started their own plan, it's going to take a long time before that plan's even $1 million or $2 million. Average $1.25 million plan is 1.45%, roughly double the cost what the average participant in this plan pays. So again, there's a lot of buying power that this plan has, given that it has 100 plus employers, almost $60 million in assets today. So really cool program, and um, really goes to show that you don't have to sacrifice if you want to offer a good retirement benefit to your people. Again, the other thing that I think is really cool is just that unlimited access to advice that participants have. I know, a lot of organizations have a lot of young people that are just kind of getting started, maybe need some financial education. Any participating employer in this plan, their employees have access to webinars from CAPTRUST, quarterly market update videos, unlimited access to one-on-one meetings with CAPTRUST retirement counselors, the ability to access our CAPTRUST advice website where they can go on and access calculators, set appointments. So again, a number of different ways that we can engage with people and give them advice, and something that you have available to your people if you join the program. So let's talk about maybe what some other alternatives are, and then we'll kind of wrap up and I'll take questions, because there are some other ways that you could offer retirement benefits to your people. And I think there's some great opportunities out there. And so there's certainly pros and cons to each. And these are the types of conversations I have with interested employers all the time. Obviously, the first option is just to not offer retirement at all. The nice thing about that is there's no cost. If you don't offer a retirement program, you don't have any cost related to your retirement program. You have no liability or risk whatsoever, because there are no contributions to send in. It's very easy. Now, obviously, the cons of that is you might have less healthy employees from a financial standpoint. You might have difficulty attracting and retaining talent, a little bit more difficult to retain talent if you don't have a retirement benefit. So certainly that's why we see more and more organizations looking to add some sort of retirement benefit. You could start your own retirement program. You could start what's called a simple IRA. Those are potentially a low-cost solution. The simple IRA is potentially a low-cost solution. Minimal administration. Generally, it's through some sort of broker. Could be a Schwab or an Edward Jones. Minimal risk and liability, because typically the employee is sending in their contributions. However, one of the biggest issues with that is a lot of times the investment availability is limited. It can be expensive from an investment standpoint. The limits that you can contribute as an employee are substantially lower than they are in a 403(b) plan. There is a mandatory employer contribution, so you have to send employer contributions in. An employee can't do Roth. So if the employee say, hey, I want to do after tax, that's part of my strategy, they can't do that. And it can be a little bit more difficult to exit as well. We have a number of different organizations that will offer a simple IRA and then decide they want to join the NAM 403(b). And that is absolutely possible. But generally, you can only do that the first of the year. And so you do kind of hamstring yourself a little bit if you ever want to exit that offering. And then, of course, the last one is just offering your own retirement program. You could establish your own 401k or your own 403(b). Of course, a 401k or 403(b) has higher deferral limits than a simple IRA, so that's great. If you establish your own plan, you've got ultimate design flexibility and control. You can, if you anticipate growing quite a bit, pretty easy to scale that. Obviously, you can offer Roth if you have one of those programs. The con is it's a lot of work to start one, a lot of risk from a fiduciary standpoint. You're going to have to devote a lot of time to oversee that plan if you're doing things the way you're supposed to do them. Can be relatively administratively burdensome. You have to file that Form 5500 every year. Depending on your size, you might have to do an audit. And generally, again, when you're starting from scratch, the participant costs are going to be substantially higher than they would be in this program, because it's going to take you a long time to build up those assets and have that buying power. As you recall from that prior slide, that startup plan generally is going to be twice the cost, if not more, as this program. And when I talk about cost, I think a very important thing to clarify. So generally in a retirement program, the cost is paid by the participant. The beautiful thing about this program is an organization can offer this to their employees at essentially no cost to the organization. If you join, BPAS charges a $250 joining fee. And that's just to set up your plan, to establish a plan document for you. But there is no ongoing employer expense. So that's really one of the changes when we moved to BPAS. We got rid of that at Benefit Plans Inc. and Nationwide. We got rid of all the employer costs. We recognize that a lot of nonprofits just can't afford to pay for the retirement benefit. So there is no ongoing cost. The only cost would be if you decided you want to make some sort of match or some sort of contribution to your employees, but you don't have to do that. So kind of comparing the NAM 403B to a standalone plan. NAM 403B, all the administration's handled by the committee. Committee files the Form 5500 at the Department of Labor. Committee oversees the audit. If you had your own plan, you might have to do your own 5500. You might have to do your own audit. CAPTRUST, we negotiate and benchmark all the plan fees. We negotiate with the benefit plan administrative services of the world. We oversee the investment lineup. We help work with the auditor to negotiate those fees. All of those things are overseen by the committee and by CAPTRUST. You'd have to oversee those things on your own if you started your own plan. We also oversee the employee education. So again, we offer that advice to anyone who is a participant in the plan. You'd have to oversee that on your own if you offered your own plan. You may be able to have that outsourced. Maybe a record keeper would do some generic education for you. Maybe an advisor would do that for you, but you would be in charge of overseeing that and making sure that that advice that's being provided is good advice. And then lastly, there are certain things that have to exist at a plan level. One being what's called a fidelity bond. It's an insurance policy for the plan. If you had your own plan, you'd have to purchase one of those. Because we have one collective plan that is handled by NAM at the plan level, so you don't have to worry about that expense. So again, the coolest thing about it is you ultimately can offer this at essentially no cost. Some organizations might say we really can't afford to make an employer match this year, but we do want to provide an avenue for our people to save. You can offer this plan with no ongoing cost if you're not making a match. So it's a pretty cool thing. So as I kind of wrap up, we'll take questions here. But again, important considerations, why someone might consider joining this program. It doesn't really require a lot of time. All you have to really do is make sure that you send in employee contributions in a timely manner. And Benefit Plan Administrative Services helps with that. You can discharge all the expertise to NAM and to CAPTRUST. Great way to attract, retain, reward employees. Great way to help employees on their wellness journey, provide access to financial wellness and advice. There's essentially no cost to the employer other than that kind of one-time joining fee of $250. And then for the participant ongoing, costs substantially lower than they would be if you started your own plan from scratch and it was small, or even if they went to work for many different for-profit employers out there. On average, this plan is more competitive. And ultimately, you're outsourcing almost all of the risk and liability for offering this program. The only liability you retain is again, if you have employees that decide to contribute, just making sure you're pulling money out of their paycheck and sending it in a timely manner so that their money gets into the plan and gets invested. And again, that's pretty easy to do with the help of Benefit Plan Administrative Services. So let's talk about next steps, and then we'll wrap up here. So if you're interested in learning more, I highly recommend you reach out to me, and I'll share my contact information in a second. But every week, it's probably multiple different nonprofits every week that reach out looking for more information, and we'll connect with them. In fact, I had an individual reach out last week, and he happened to be a financial advisor, but he's on a board of a nonprofit. And he said, "Hey, tomorrow morning I'm meeting with this with the board, and it was my homework assignment to learn about the plan, and I forgot to do it. Can you teach me about the plan really quickly so I'm ready to go tomorrow morning?" And sure enough, we exchanged about 3 or 4 emails. He was all ready to go, and we get a lot of inquiries, so it's pretty easy for me to share information with you. But a lot of times organizations will say, "Hey, we're going to need to run this by the board. So give us some information, teach us a little bit about the plan. We'll run this by the board, decide if this is something that we want to consider." If you decide to join, you choose an effective date. Generally, you can join the plan within 60 to 90 days. Pretty easy to do. If you have a current provider, I know most of the nonprofits that we talk to don't. They don't have a retirement benefit today, but some do offer a simple IRA or maybe a different 403B plan. But they're considering moving to this plan because it's a little bit easier to streamline the administration, outsource a lot of the time commitment, Uh, if you decide to join the plan, we would obviously connect with that provider just to begin to work through the transition and assist you with that. You would complete what's called a joinder agreement with BPAS. So that actually allows you to customize your plan design. Who do you want to be eligible? How soon do you want to allow employees to join? Do you want to have a vesting schedule? Do you want to make some sort of employee match? There's a lot of different optionality for you to really customize this to really be tailored to your organization. It's pretty cool. You basically have your own standalone plan within the umbrella of the NAM plan. And then lastly, BPAS will work with you hand in hand for all the remaining tasks, getting set up in the plan, getting the payroll established. Oftentimes, I'll meet with organizations and their employees right before the effective date to do a kind of a quick webinar, describe what the plan is, why they might consider contributing, what the design looks like, who's going to be eligible. So a lot of times we do that as kind of a kickoff right before that effective date. So I know I threw a ton at you. I'm going to leave this slide up here because this has my contact information. Again, feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to learn more about the plan. A lot of times where it starts is people send me an email and say, hey, this is an item we've started to discuss. Can you just send me a quick summary of the plan, why I might consider it, what next steps might be? And that's a lot of times the kind of the next step. And then sometimes I'll say, hey, this sounds great. We're ready to join. Let us know who we need to talk to about that. Others will say, hey, can we set up a quick call? I've got some questions. Or, hey, we need you to maybe present this to our board. So a lot of different routes I see, but ultimately, my contact information is there. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm just one of several on a team that works with this plan. So my colleague Andrew Shimp, co-advisor on this plan with me, we've got an entire team of people behind us that help us with a lot of the day-to-day questions that come up. So we're throwing a lot of resources at hopefully making this a really good program for you and your people. So I'll pause there. Like I said, I knew I threw a ton at you here, but I'm happy to take questions if any questions came up as we were going through the materials today.
Well, so thanks, Troy. That I think is a nice, thorough background check. I also dropped two links in the chat. One was the contact page on the NAM website that tells you a little bit more about the plan. And then we do an annual audit every year on this plan, and those are posted on our website. So I dropped the link where you could go look at. I get to do two audits a year, an organizational audit and a retirement plan audit. So that's really helpful. But we started this back in 2009. It's when the federal legislation was changing to make 403Bs more like their 401k counterparts. And I firmly believe if we're going to attract smart people to the nonprofit sector, we better pay them enough to pay off their student loans and offer great benefits and flexibility. And I think this is a very affordable way to do that. And then the other thing, in the interest of transparency, NAM receives no money from this plan. Legally, we can't. It's heavily regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. So, for example, on the Employee Assistance Program, I think we get a whopping 25 cents per participant. We, pardon me, we can't do that with this plan just by the nature of how it's structured. And Troy, I don't know if you want to put down your slide deck so we can see if there's any questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if people want to come back off on camera, come on.
Yeah. All right. So I clicked the stop sharing button. So hopefully that
Perfect.
slide deck went away.
Perfect.
I
Troy,
was
I
looking
have
at the
a
chat.
question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lindsay Ray, Ronald McDonald House. I have some questions about some of the comments that you made about having unlimited access to advice, and that was one of the benefits. And so I was curious how that works. Is there an opportunity for somebody to do like several presentations throughout the year and then also work one-on-one with the team?
Yeah, so typically what we've done, and because we have so many different participating employers, obviously trying to keep the cost as low as we possibly can. Generally, what we've done is, so our website, so we have a participant-specific website called captrustadvice.com. Anyone can log on to that, and at the top right corner, there's a button they can click on that says schedule an appointment. And they can schedule as many appointments with us as they want. So it's actually going to populate a calendar, and it's going to show them all the different dates and times that they can schedule. So a lot of times people will say, well, maybe I can't schedule an appointment during the workday. Maybe I want my significant other to be with me on the call. So they can pick a time after hours, maybe that works for them. And then generally what we've done is so every quarter we do a webinar for everyone, and it'll be a different topic each quarter, but one quarter it might be understanding Social Security, preparing for retirement. The next quarter, it might be tailored to young people, understanding Roth, or maybe the 25 documents everybody should have. That's kind of been our way to say, okay, it'd probably be cost prohibitive to do a lot of education for every employer in the plan. But if we try to pick one topic each quarter that targets a different group of people, then maybe that's our most efficient way of reaching everybody. And then usually what I tell organizations too is, if once a year you want to do a kind of a nice refresher on the program, what it is. Maybe you've had some new employees join. A lot of times, like I'll do a virtual meeting once a year for any employer that wants to join, and that's where I'll get into the specifics of their program. Hey, at Ronald McDonald House, the match is 50% of the first 6% that you put in. So if you put in 6%, you'll get 3. Whatever it is, but that's where we really try to tailor it to the individual organization. So I think long-winded way of answering your question is, we try to provide as much access as we can, while also recognizing that, if we just provided unlimited amount of education to everybody, we had to kind of travel around and see people, that we'd probably get to the point where maybe the fees wouldn't be as competitive. And so, how do we provide access to that advice in a really competitive way? And kind of the best way for us to do that is to say, because at CAPTRUST, we've built out this infrastructure. We've got 100 people that just take calls from all of our clients across the country in these different call centers. And so at CAPTRUST, we've kind of cool. We've built out for the NAM plan where every single participating employer, if someone calls in from Ronald McDonald House, we click a button and it tells that person who's facilitating the call for us, here's their design, here's what their match is, here's what their eligibility is. So we can speak intelligently to that person about their program. So yeah, it's a great question. That's kind of how we've facilitated the education historically.
Yeah, that answers it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Good question.
We'll be doing, I think it's around May, we'll be getting the salary and benefits survey in the field, and then the report should be ready, hopefully August, Labor Day-ish. And we always ask about benefits because really, if we're going to be competitive, you want to know how many of your competition are offering health insurance or retirement plans or whatnot. And so I think that's a great way for you to keep current data on it. The other thing, I'm so excited. We have a new NAM employee starting next week, so I'll be connecting him with Troy. But when I made the offer, to his name's Nick, and to his credit, he said, "Hey, is that negotiable?" and asked for another dollar amount. And I said, "Not that much." And good for you for asking, because you should always ask that question. Worst I can say is no. And then when I explained and sent him some information, your salary. Your income is more than just your salary. So it's how much NAM puts into the retirement plan and the health insurance. And that really adds up quite a bit. So they're making more than they realize they are. So once again, to make the competition, make them harder for somebody else to take, because they'd have to match your good plans that you or benefits that you're offering.
Yeah, and I think that's a great reminder too, and because I imagine there's probably some on the call today that are already participating in the plan. Their organizations are. I mentioned a lot of the different resources that we provide from a participant standpoint, but we do highly recommend that you send to us, if you can, current list of employee email addresses, because we try to monthly send resources out. So once a quarter, it's a market update video. Our chief investment officer is on CNBC and Fox News and CNN all the time. He's one of those talking heads that talks about the economy. They bring him on. And so he does a quick 5-minute video every quarter designed to meet participants at their level, talking about what's going on right now in the markets and the economy. What should you be concerned about? What are the opportunities? Once a quarter, we do a topical video. So it might just be understanding Roth, or it might be understanding Social Security, whatever it may be. And then once a quarter, we do a webinar. So we try to have a monthly touch point. And we remind people at the end of each of those touch points that your employer has provided access to advice for you at no cost. And that's a valuable employer benefit. And here's how you get in touch with CAPTRUST if you need advice. So I always recommend that. I know it's a lot of moving parts, 100 plus participating employers. And so it can be difficult sometimes for us to keep up with those email addresses, but we've got a lot of resources that we can share with your people if we just have the ability to share those with them.
And then CapTrust shares with us on a regular basis who's participating because you do have to be pay your dues and you're eligible to participate. It's just that simple. It also crosses state lines very easily. If you're a small organization and you've tried to get health insurance, it's really hard for health insurance to cross state lines, but this crosses state lines very easily. You can do it with one employee or a couple hundred employees. So it's really, you can design it however that you want to. Um, and then, we get advice that we'll always put in the salary and benefit report. Like I'll reach out when we get closer to that and say, hey, Troy, what are you seeing the average matches right now or fees just generally? So then that way you have just in time information so you can make an informed budget decision.
That's a great point, Anna. I think a lot of the organizations that reach out to me, some of them will say, we'd love to offer someone the means to save for retirement, but maybe as an organization, we can't afford to make a match. So I'll say, well, let's set up the match as discretionary, meaning that you have full authority to decide whether or not you make the match. So there are a lot of organizations that participate that the cost to them was that $250
Ahorita no
joining
puedo
fee.
porque estoy en un entrenamiento.
And then
Ahorita voy.
oops, and then they've never had to pay another dime, but they're giving people the opportunity to participate, but they're not making that match on an ongoing basis. So I think that's a common misnomer of plans is that you're required to make some sort of match to your employees, and you certainly don't have to if that's something that you can't afford to do as an organization.
Yeah, I remember after NAM, Urban League of Nebraska was like the number two people organization in the plan. And I don't think they matched at that time. And that was okay. They were able to still offer it. And I think did we cut off a question maybe? I can't quite see.
I don't know. Yeah, I heard something for a second there.
Or it could just be the oops of Zoom.
Sure. And if that's the case, then we've done pretty well because that was the only one we had so far. So that's good. When you have a big group, you never know when you'll have those.
Well, and as you think of any questions, you have Troy's email, you have my email, happy to answer questions and just really, to offer as good benefits you can to attract and retain talent. Because right now it's a challenge, I think, for that. There's also been like so much turnover in the sector. So if you're not sure, like, hey, is so and so still on the plan, or where are they? We can get you all that information. I know when we did the big push to change over to BPAS in December, early January, I was getting lots of calls, especially like from former nonprofit employees that said, hey, where do I go to get my money? It's not at Nationwide anymore. And I said, oh, let me connect you, with my contact at BPAS, and it was a warm handoff. So super easy. I think you're going to like the customer service that you get and make your life easier because that's our job at NAM. We want to make your life easier.
Can I just ask one more question and then I promise I'll be quiet after
You're
that?
fine. Ask two.
I might, don't challenge me, Ann. I'm curious if this is too far off of what we're looking at here, but do you also provide opportunities for like key person life insurance, or is that totally separate and would be included in a separate type of plan?
So we don't do any of that.
Okay.
But yeah, we strictly just kind of stick to the retirement program. I don't know, Ann, if there's other relationships that you have that
Mhm.
you may be able to connect.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I would encourage you to look at our business partners page because that's why they pay us. So we advertise them. And there's a variety of insurance folks. At the NAM office, we actually use FNIC for health, life, short-term, long-term disability, um, all those types of insurancy things.
Cool. Thank you.
You bet.
Good question.
Well, I'm happy to stick around and take more questions, as I'm sure Troy is too, or we can give you 10 minutes back in your day um, to go online and start checking out the plan. See what you need to do if you don't offer it, what you need to get it going.
Yeah, and I think another thing I'll mention too, Anna, is always happy to help people benchmark. So if you've got something that you're offering today and you say, "Well, I have no idea how that compares," we can arm you with the questions to ask to obtain that information, and then we can say, "Hey, that does compare favorably," or "Hey, I think you could enhance your offering in all these different areas if you were to consider the NAM plan."
I think that's a really good point, because I know, especially in the earlier days, we'd get that a lot because not that you can't do business with your board members, but maybe there's somebody in this business on your board and they wanted to get a comparison just to make sure they were still getting a good deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good question from Jenny. Can we share the slides? Absolutely, I'd be happy to. So, um, and maybe I don't know if the easiest way to do that is just to
Why
send
don't you
those to
get it?
me.
Yeah, get it to me and then I will figure out how to download the recording and I will share the recording and the slides
Perfect.
out to both the CEO and the HR listservs.
Awesome.
Well, thanks everybody. Um, if you have like other topics you want to hear about, shoot me an email because we're always looking for guest speakers because they're more fun.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Troy.
Yeah, thanks, Ann. Talk to you soon.